and that you do have a purpose and you are really uniquely made for like whatever you're supposed to do, like stuff that I won't do, and you're going to reach people that I don't reach. And that's why we're all so different and live in different locations and have different giftings, is because I can't do what you do and you don't do what I do. And maybe you will be able to talk better to this group of people that they would never listen to me, and vice versa. And that's just the beauty of having a really, tapestry of unique giftings with unique people, all different races, colors, backgrounds, you know. So I just try to help people remember that
Mhm.
they're okay and remember their creative abilities to heal themselves and to create their own timelines. And, we're super powerful beings when we remember that we are. And if someone's ever told us, I mean, some people
This
don't
is
even know that.
Unconditioning, Discovering the Voice Within, with Whitney and Jenkins. Hello and welcome to the 97th episode of Unconditioning, Discovering the Voice Within, where I bring on guests and we talk about the inner authentic voice and the challenges and the rewards that come from following it. This week, I have with me Dr. Sharnael Wolverton Sehon. She is a captivating multidisciplinary expert who seamlessly blends naturopathic medicine, spirituality, and quantum science to empower individuals on their journey to wholeness. As the founder of True TV and author of 5 groundbreaking books, including her international best-selling book, The Science of Miracles, Remembering the Frequency of Love, Dr. Sharnael offers a unique perspective on achieving optimal health and unlocking human potential. Her global influence spans over 51 countries, where she shares her transformative insights through speaking engagements, online classes, and social media platforms. She also has over 15,000 clients online with her technology of remote work with long distance biofeedback. I had a really wonderful time speaking with Dr. Sharnael in this episode and conversation. She's really down to earth and was incredibly vulnerable with sharing her own experiences with supernatural and how she came to be able to help people find their authenticity today. So here is my conversation with Dr. Sharnael. So, the nature of my podcast is about following the inner authentic voice, or the duende, or the daimon, or that thing inside of you that drives you. And the nature of your work and what you do in guiding people yourself, you had to go through a lot of experiences to be able to be a leader or a guide for people. And so, one of the things that I like to initially ask is, when is the first time that you realized that you had this inner voice of your own that you were able to recognize and follow?
Oh my gosh. That is such, I don't think anyone's ever asked me that. I I don't know if it was voices or my inner voice. I've been having like encounters since I was really young, but they always seemed outside now that you're saying that. It wasn't until maybe junior high that I started kind of like realizing that I wasn't talking to myself, but that it was something else, some other something in there. It sounds like me, right? And or I don't know, maybe your voice in your head doesn't sound like you, but it's like and it might be a little bit softer, like a little bit more faint. Um and it seems to kind of creep up and just be like, "Hey, go over there," or "Hey, don't do that," or "Hey," and maybe not even say "Hey," but you know what I'm saying?
Pay
Um
attention. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it's just a little nudge.
Mhm.
Um, it wasn't until much later that I think I really started breaking down that voice is either my future self, or is it God, or is it consciousness, or is it my higher self? Like, I don't even know how to define. I just
Yeah.
know that it's something that has led me to some really great things, and also some things that when I didn't pay attention or listen, I found out that there were results that weren't always the best results. Is, that I kind of
Mhm.
like learned to trust it over practice, and because I was like, oh, I don't want that to happen again. Like that sucked.
Right. What was your environment like growing up? Where did you grow up, and were you encouraged to follow a voice of your own? Did you have like religion as an in part of your upbringing? What was that like?
I actually had no religion coming up on my own. I grew up military, and my dad was gone quite often for long periods of time, being with his job in the military. And what that did lead to is when he would be gone for a year or a year and a half or 9 months here or 6 months there, we would always go back home to Montana, which is where I'm from originally. And we didn't have any I didn't have anybody who lived by me. I mean, you could literally drive straight 30 minutes and not see another tree or building or house or gas station or store. Like the
Oh,
way Montana is,
mhm.
you're literally in the middle of nowhere for a long, long, long time. So I had a lot of silence, a lot of time alone. I was the oldest girl, and well, the two girls, and I spent so much time in the barn with animals. That was like that's what I did. I grew up with animals, and those were my friends, and caught butterflies and played with ducks, and you know just tamed kittens. I can't even tell you how many sets of kittens that I fostered and or would tame that were feral. And then, so I think there's something that innately like sensitized me a bit to some things that maybe other people might have or may not have, or it's just a different way of approaching things maybe. What about you?
Me. Oh wow.
I'm just curious.
I feel very similar to what you're describing. I grew up in West Virginia, and I spent a lot of time outside and pondering things by myself and wondering about my place in the world. And I feel like that's kind of where I connected with my inner voice as well in the solitude.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, everyone has their own way of and some people never find their way, right? I mean, some people don't even know that there is that voice yet. And but that's kind of what my goal is, and I think kind of what you're doing with this podcast and with whatever your services are, is just like helping people remember themselves, remember their voice, remember how to pay attention and be aware of um that inner voice, or GPS. I call it like the God positioning system. um
Just, yeah.
yeah. And and it can be really powerful when we listen, if we listen and if we're aware. And if we're not, then it's not like it's the end of the world. I mean, sometimes I guess it could be at the end of this life.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
but
Hmm.
I can give you an example, like even later years, several times in the morning, I was waking up saying, no, no sugar. I kept hearing no more sugar, no more sugar. And didn't listen, and then I finally was like, okay, okay. And so I started, slowly getting off sugar. And it wasn't for a few months later that I had found out that I actually was dealing with a pretty bad diagnosis that sugar would have fed. And that
Oh,
would
wow.
have been that could have been a life or death kind of thing of not listening. You know what I mean? But I had no reason to listen. It's not like I was super overweight or needed to go on a diet, but it was like my literal body was trying to tell me, hey, stop doing this for a bit. And it served I got to stay. With-
Yeah.
I did a lot of other things too, but that could have been the thing that kept me around longer to even get the help that I needed, to further help.
Yeah. You mentioned earlier when I asked you about your inner voice that you were thinking of some other things that were more external. Can you describe those a little bit and what you meant by that?
Yeah, I actually had an encounter on Easter Sunday. as a child at my grandmother's house when my dad was gone. One of the times he was gone, and it was a only my words now, like a holographic type kind of beamed in Jesus, who I didn't know was Jesus at the time. I just knew that I felt a lot of love and immense love. I felt like I literally vibrated. My whole body was vibrating, and I was very emotional. Like I felt like I was being pressed on the outside and the inside all at the same time with just this like overwhelming love. And I haven't ever seen him again since then. I didn't find out until second grade that that was, well, what some people call Jesus, Yeshua, whatever. I don't, I believe that there was a dude that walked around that lived, and people call him Jesus now. But I've had encounters with uh, a couple other light beings, which at the time I described as like an angel. That was my only terminology. Um, One was very female, one was very like more manly, and I've seen her twice. I've seen him once, but I hear her sometimes. Like she's told me like, "Hey, you're pregnant," or she came at the foot of my bed one time to tell me I was pregnant. She told me another time when I was losing the baby. She's come with times when we were needing to switch gears regarding my profession or my purpose, my mission here. So literally external, I guess. I mean, I saw it outside. Maybe I saw the whole thing inside, and it wasn't even outside. Who knows how all those rabbit holes are, but it appeared to me at the time very outside.
Was there something, like looking back on those experiences individually, if you look at them together, was there something similar in the circumstances of like what you were experiencing during that time in your life?
Desperation. One of the times was just a horrific situation that I was in, and a really abusive situation. I was pretty much fasting and really seeking during that time because I was just really unsure about a lot of different things going on in my life at that period of time. And I would literally just come home from work, go straight to the guest room, and I would just like pray and journal and write and meditate. And I was doing that for pretty much every day for a long, long, long time. Um, and had a different encounter there. Actually, that was Jesus a second time. I forgot that I had seen it. I was thinking it was the angelic, but it basically, I know it sounds crazy, but I heard in my head, lift up your hands. I have no idea to this day why still, like, but I lifted up my hands, and instantly I felt like this coating of like a liquid something coming over the tops of my fingertips and then come down and then touch my head. And then the more that it covered me, the more I felt like enveloped into this liquid love kind of feeling. And I remember looking at the clock, it was like 8:20 something at night. It was dark out. And then I saw him again, and he offered, I just suddenly, I was like on his lap, and he was like sitting Indian style. When I saw, God, I'm gonna get emotional. Sorry.
Oh, take your time.
Just a lot of comfort. And he was just rocking me, telling me over and over, it's okay, it's okay, it's okay, it's okay. And there weren't any words like on my end, and I don't remember anything else except for that he just kept saying it's okay. And then at one point, like when your eyes are closed, but you still see light, and you know that a light is like in your face. I
Mhm.
felt like there was like this light in my face.
Yeah.
So I opened up my eyes and was thinking, something's in the room. And I was just sitting on my bed. I still had my hands in the air. And so I literally was like, oh, and I put my hands down. It's light everywhere. I saw it was coming from light outside as well. And I was like, what the heck? I thought maybe a car was shining its light inside of my room. So I went to go look out and it was light everywhere. Like there was no car. It was just, it looked like a regular day. And so I was really confused and walked back into the room and went into the living room and was just like really disoriented and realized when I looked at the clock, like 2 or 3 minutes had gone by, but it was really like 12 hours. And so I just like literally lost time of just being held and being rocked and being told it's okay. So
Yeah. You like entered a different timeline, sounds like.
yeah, I still I'm like, ugh. And then there's other times when I'm like, hey, can someone come over and like help me, and then I get it's like not whenever, it's not the convenient time and or the time when I'm really needing it all the time, but I guess it is whatever time it is, whoever makes up how that happens or whatever the formula is, is beyond me.
Right. Did you have anyone that you were able to share these experiences with and make sense of them like around those times?
Actually, at the time, I was late for work that day because of what happened. And when I got to my job, I was working at a bank at the time, and our bank was Hibernia, which is now Capital One, and they rented out buildings from the Jimmy Swagger like college that was on campus because they would have these buildings they weren't using. And again, I'm not religious at all. And here I had been going to work every day. I worked on the retention team, and when I showed up that day, I noticed that at the top of the building it said Mariah Woodworth Edward Building. And I had seen that before, but I didn't know who that was or anything. And so anyway, I go to work, I'm late. The girl who had helped me get the job was like freaking out because, she had just helped me get this job. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. You are not going to believe what just happened. And I kind of told her what was going on, and she was like, "Oh my gosh, that sounds like Mariah Wood with Edward stuff." And I was like, "Who is that?" And she was
Mm.
like, "That's the person who's on the building." So I later went home and studied this chick, and she would do these meetings where she would like go somewhere and people would just be frozen in time, like for miles. And then they would get healed of different things and have all these, weird stuff where they'd be stuck or, you
Huh.
know, I don't know. So she's kind of an interesting character. I actually went to go see, really study her and find out more, and actually went to her grave. I know that sounds kind of maybe morbid or whatever, but I like was like just curious. And then now thinking about it, I'm like, I wonder if there was some sort of vibe off the building or something, that who knows? Like, how does this all happen? There's so many just weird things that happen, how we
Mhm.
would connect like that.
Yeah, synchronicities. So that experience, like how did that change your trajectory moving forward in your life?
Yeah, well, I ended up kind of shifting gears with my job. I really had just a passion to help as many people as possible to, just to really connect with whatever this paranormal, supernatural miracle realm was all about. Um, Getting a taste of that kind of stuff, like you just want more all the time. Like the regular world, whatever, just seems kind of boring at times. And so I'm kind of obsessed still with like watching YouTube videos or whatever on people who have near death experiences or, UFOs or who are able to do kind of like supernatural kind of things because I'm a big believer in, this should be normal. Like, why aren't there more people doing extraordinary things that our technology has been created to do? Like, it just should be the normal thing of creating, and whether that's by locating or creating money or new friends or I don't know, growing out a limb that needs to, or healing yourself, or, you know, all the big miracles, and all the way down to like even the little miracles like breathing and waking up today and being able to have coffee with my daughter, or, things that
Mhm.
maybe people don't really express as a miracle, but I see that as a miracle too.
Yeah, definitely. How are you taking these things and applying them to being able to help other people?
Well, I think a lot of people, especially in these last few years, are a bit hopeless. Um, there's a lot of death that's happened, especially in the last few years. Um, a lot of estrangement. Estrangement is up like 1,000,000%. I mean, it used to be 1 out of 500 people were estranged from a single family member, and now it's like 1 in 4 multiple family members will be estranged, with all these divisions and these social engineered kind of like distractions and
Yeah.
media, and all this stuff that's just trying to be really divisive and working in some ways. um Suicide is up. Drugs and alcohol are way over the top. There's just a lot of hurting people who, maybe not really have a sense of direction or reason to know why they're here. And I don't know. I just feel not pressure, but I just feel so motivated to be able to express to people like, hey, you're not by yourself, and that you do have a purpose, and you are really uniquely made for like whatever you're supposed to do, that stuff that I won't do, and you're going to reach people that I don't reach. And that's why we're all so different and live in different locations and have different giftings, is because I can't do what you do and you don't do what I do. And maybe you will be able to talk better to this group of people that they would never listen to me, and vice versa. And that's just the beauty of having a really, tapestry of unique giftings with unique people, all different races, colors, backgrounds, you know. So I just try to help people remember that
Mhm.
they're okay, and remember their creative abilities to heal themselves and to create their own timelines. And, um, we're super powerful beings when we remember that we are. And if someone's ever told us, I mean, some people don't even know that. And it's like, what? You know?
Yeah. What would the process be like if someone were to work with you, if you would help them with those things?
It just depends. We do what I call soul audits, where basically I'll measure like the radius of your field, the width of the field. I could see where someone is on the consciousness level. We can check to see where the chakras are, if they're balanced or unbalanced, where the male and female energies are, if they're balanced or unbalanced. And we also look at the top five. Like roadblocks for abundance. It could be like a trauma related thing from mom or dad, or just some kind of subconscious things going on. A lot of the people that I work with have so much from like age 7 to 0, where a lot of this stuff came in pretty easily through the subconscious during those years, just because of the formation of the brain and just, how we're made. But I do that. I also do biofeedback, which I can do diagnostics through voice recording. And then we do imagery of your biofield, and we can kind of see if there's anything missing or need to be filled in, or aligned, or just amped up a little bit with frequency. And that comes with 30 different reports. So we look at not just the psychic type stuff as far as maybe cutting cords or attachments, or entities or dark energies that may be there or need to be cleared. But we look at the physical things too, like the major stressors. Maybe you're not sleeping well. Maybe you need to get more grounded. We could look at skeletal issues, hormones, EKGs, EEGs, sleep patterns, Emotions are a big one too. We can look at like if there's any trauma lodged in there, how long it's been, if it's been ancestral or if it's something current. And then what we do is once we get the diagnostics, we look at having the software create frequencies that will be customized based on those diagnostics. And then they send back to the person and immediately people feel better. I mean, there's a lot of people who feel it. A lot of people say they don't feel it. But the majority of the people who work with me will say like, oh my gosh, I instantly felt better, or their pain would go down, or like the histamine issues would go away, or they would sleep like a baby. I know the first couple times that one of the doctors worked on me, I slept like 15 hours straight, just like knocked me out. And I slept so good. And the third time that I got it, I was totally the opposite. I was cleaning like crazy. I was decluttering. I was throwing away stuff. I was donating everything. I was just getting in order, you know. Um, but I think if you don't know where you are, it's kind of hard to know where to go. So anything that can be measured can be managed. And so having diagnostics like this, or just knowing like what are your areas that need to be cleared and then go ahead and clear them. You know, I've been able to work with people who may be at like a 200 on consciousness and slowly get up to like 4 or 5 and just creep up. And the higher that we go in consciousness, the bigger the sphere of our realm is as far as the biofield, which gives us more influence and more opportunities for things to come in too, because this biofield radiates, but it also magnetizes. And I see a lot of people who come and do work with me, and like the snags of like negative patterns just seem to dissipate, health issues dissipate, maybe the narcissistic, you know, ex-boyfriend stops calling and you're like, phew, you know. We've had people who got checks in the mail or like money that was owed to them from years ago. All of a sudden it's like, boom, it comes back. Or they get that job opening that they've always wanted or whatever. Because a lot of this stuff is just, you know, maybe not seen, and maybe not even felt to everybody, but it's still there. And when we can clear it, then it leaves more room for new things to come and for better opportunities to take those spots.
Oh, yeah, that's really fascinating. That technology has come to the point where you can actually show someone something rather than like just making them believe. Have you explored your own field? Because you were having pretty phenomenal experiences throughout your life. Is there a correspondence to what shows up on like a report for some experience like that?
For the biofeedback or for the soul audit or for
Oh,
both?
for all of it, yeah.
Um, the reason why I even got into soul audits is because I had something similar um tested on me. And uh and then I was just like, okay, I want to add this, I want to add this. You know, I kind of just made my own um customized testing for people. But yeah, it started out with me just wanting to know kind of where I am, and knowing, you know, watching myself clear and do the inner work and see if that would raise the bar, or clear, do the inner work, see if that would raise the bar. You know, I'm super data, like I'm very left brain. I think I'm pretty right brain too. I like, you know, drawing and painting and music, and I did music, songwriting for years. Um, but yeah, that data part of me is like, I got to see, I want to see, you know, how I'm doing. And that's the part I think where the measuring comes in. It's like, if you can measure it, then you know where to go. But if you have a GPS and you don't even put in where you are, but you know you want to go somewhere, how does the GPS know how to get you there if you don't have an address to start with? And so these kind of things for me are really pivotal and actually getting any traction, because you got to start somewhere. And it's like, you know, even with like parasites, for example, we do this monthly parasite cleanse as a group. I started out doing it with me first, and then I was like, oh, I'm getting some good results, so anyone want to do it with me, then we can have some accountability and make it fun. And just started putting a bunch of research on a lot of the parasites thing, and made a big Facebook group, and people would just come and come and come. And we did like questionnaires before and after a few months, we started getting some same feedback that people who were killing off like mold and parasites were also seeing significant changes in their external environment as far as like not getting bullied, or someone at work that would constantly give them trouble just stopped giving them trouble, or maybe, wasn't fighting with their wife or husband anymore. Like things were just kind of harmonized and like smooth. And I started thinking about that on an electronic level, and I'm like, well, that makes sense, because if parasites or fungus have, which they do, have their own frequency, and they're sending that out into the radiation of the field, like we only get what we are. And basically they're broadcasting that that person is a good host to be victimized and or to be used. And people will only submit to our lowest common denominator, whether they're doing it on purpose or if it's just like subliminal, like they're like, can't help it, but they're just moochers or people with lower vibrations that cannot create their own vibration. So they have to live off someone else's by siphoning from someone else. And that's the only way they know how to live. Like, I'm not saying that it's right. I'm just saying, like,
Yeah.
that's what they've always done. And they're, until they switch it up, that's what they're going to do. So when you remove the factor from the field of the signal, I'm a good host, cancel clear, that equation wasn't even there anymore to magnetize. And it was literally removed from the actual equation, where now we were only blasting out self-care, love, truth, sovereignty. And guess what? You only get a match to that. And so as those numbers went out in the positive, we were attracting like people that were giving and more equal relationships, and people that were, partnership, like actual partnership, whether it was family or spouses or work, instead of this take, give type dynamic, this codependent situation.
Oh, yeah. You explained that really well. Sometimes energy and talking about it can kind of seem really complex. I really understand that very well.
Awesome. Yeah. So that's an example of like how the physical still affects, because I think of parasites as a physical thing, although there are electronic parasites as well, right? And so everything really goes hand in hand and everything works together. And in this torrid that we all live in as humans, and then and animals and plants and the world, like even the world has its own, Schumann resonance. So working with these energies and knowing how to work with the energies is what I love doing. And just I'm really passionate about people being able to literally vibe up and get their energy up and feel better. And, like I don't care how many psychic readings someone has had and how many dreams they have. Like if you don't feel well and you're being taken from all the time and you can't pay the bills, cancel clear, and all these other things, then how are you going to do like your perfect destiny? How are you going to have your highest timeline? And I just want people to remember that we can create that together. And I need help just as much as anyone else. Like I think we're all made so different on purpose, so we do rely on each other a little bit, and that way we're all not just like this one woman or man that can do everything. We don't need anyone kind of deal. Um, so, because I used to look at like, well, I'm not hiring a coach. I'm not like going to get some outside help. Like, I got this, But even as a doctor, I was really, really sick a couple days ago. I was sick for like 10 days actually. And my mom was like, maybe you should call a doctor. And I was like, I am a doctor. It's just like, it's funny, but
Yeah.
but I did make a call to a couple friends and they were like, well, are you doing this? Are you doing that? I'm like, oh, I didn't think about that. It's like sometimes we just don't think about the stuff for ourselves that we would maybe tell our patients or our clients, and it's just like, duh.
Because I think we're a little bit conditioned to think that those things are selfish, and self-love has kind of become like a term, like self-care, like a Hallmark greeting card that's just like, oh, let's go get like a mani-pedi. But it's really not that at all. It's like putting that energy towards yourself.
It's currency,
Yeah.
you know? it truly is self-love. And how do you give away love if you don't even love yourself? And I know that sounds like super cliche too, but I think a lot of moms, especially, and or people in any kind of service, like whether it's like a spiritual service or like a clinical service, or moms with 29 hats, soccer mom, homework, cooking, work, it's like we tend to put ourselves last, and it can be exhausting if we're not careful. And I literally have gotten to the point at this age now where I'm like, go through my calendar and I'm like off, like for real off, like X, not taking calls, not you know getting this one person in or this second person, it's like, because it just tends to like get to where I've lost myself and I'm not doing anything fun. I have to schedule
Mm.
time to play or to read or to actually do nothing. My husband and I have started these once or twice a year trips where we have the no plan, and we just show up wherever, and our whole plan is to do nothing. And when we get there, we just get up and we decide if we're going to do something that day or not. And usually we keep a really open heart, and sometimes things fill in and sometimes we just read and like hang out together. But I
Mhm.
think that like revelation comes from rest.
Mm.
And I tend to be someone who's not the best at balance in the past. And so if I have to schedule it, then I'm going to, because that may be my only way to get that balance. No one's going to say like, take a day off, Sharnael. It's like,
Yeah, I think there's also a difference between rest and relaxation.
so tell me about that.
Feel like there because rest is something that's required. Like we have to sleep at night. Like we have to like have that time to recharge. But relaxation, I feel like can take us to a different frequency. Maybe a more open one without
Okay.
much pressure. I'm not sure, but that's just what I'm getting right now.
I like that you said that, because I've had a thing before where, like, let's say, so at my clinic we have a lady who does raindrop therapy, which I love. And she'll come like on Tuesday, and sometimes if she's not busy at night, I'll be like, hey, can you work me in, as your last client or whatever. And and sometimes she'll offer and say like, hey, I'm not doing anything if you need me tonight or whatever. And if I have something going on like that next morning, I can't, or even like that evening, like around 7, like I can't get, I don't want to say I can't, it's hard for me to relax from 5 to 6 if I know I have to go do something at 7. Like I just, it's like I may be resting physically on the deal, but mentally I'm like, well, don't forget this, and I got to plug that in, and I got to call that girl to make sure she, it's like all this mental gymnastics. Is that what you mean? Like not,
Kind of like even I remember on Sundays before going to school, I couldn't relax that whole day because I was like, I have to go to school the next day. I can't relax.
oh, okay.
But relaxing also, I feel like, is a gateway into our inner child and creativity, and being able to access those parts of ourselves. Because relaxation can sort of like line up with boredom sometimes, but boredom's not always a bad thing.
Oh, wow. You were freaking me out. I was literally having these internal conversations like an hour ago about the boredom versus maybe boredom isn't bad kind of deal. But man, thank you so much for saying that. Golly, I'm getting emotional again. So even with the whole like vacay deal, like I found that if let's say it's Monday to Friday, we're gonna go somewhere. If I schedule something on Wednesday, like even like one appointment, I'll say, oh, I'll do one appointment or two appointments, just that one day and get it done. I feel like I still can't rest like the Monday, Tuesday as much. If I know I don't have anything going on, like my body will
Mhm.
calm down knowing I literally don't have anything to do right now. But if I don't, then it'll be till Wednesday and then I'll be finished. And then my body will go like, okay, now I can chill.
Yeah.
Like, what is that?
I'm wondering if it has to do with boundaries of some sort. And I kind of wanted to touch on that a little bit before you have to go, because we're coming up on time, of the importance of boundaries when it comes to energy and frequency. If you have any words of wisdom for that.
Yeah, I think it goes back a little bit to what we were saying as far as, and I don't want to keep saying moms or women because I'm sure that dudes have their own whole pressure of whatever is going on in their lives. But going back to the whole like, yeah, I'm going to take off, or I'm not going to take calls after 5, or I'm not going to take calls before 10 because the first 2 hours of my day, I'm going to do admin things and drink coffee and get my kids ready for school, just whatever. Like, um, I have not been the best with boundaries. I think it was guilt and or just feeling overwhelmed by so much need, um, in the past, but I am getting better at just realizing, you know what, things can wait and it's okay. I mean, like even today I had to cancel a couple interviews because my internet kept going out. I wasn't even sure if we were going to be able to do this today, but we had a really weird storm in Louisiana and the internet has been awful and it's perfect now. But when I was trying to reschedule, I'm literally booked until mid-March, and I felt like overwhelmed about it because I was like, "Oh, these people might be upset with me that I can't get them in until the middle of March." And then I was like, "Well, maybe I should just try to get them in on a Saturday or some, it's like I see myself like giving up parts that I know I shouldn't give up because I'll pay for it somewhere else. Like, you know what I mean? But would you tell me what you do? I want to know what you do to have those boundaries. Like, and how do you not live with the guilt?
I am still learning about boundaries, so I was hoping you could tell me. It's a brand new thing for me, and I think it has a lot to do with my childhood and the way that I grew up and like not really being able to have boundaries, or they were overstepped, or how that has turned into being such a people pleaser. So I think it's a lot of like unlearning that I've had to do, and to put myself first, to actually put that energy towards myself. But also I feel like there's another part of me where I feel like boundaries has like a sort of a negative connotation, and it sounds like it just takes away your freedom of possibility. And there is like that part of me that is curious and adventurous and like wants to be spontaneous at any time that I'm able to. But I've found that actually having boundaries and putting structure around your energy gives you more freedom in the end,
Hmm. How so?
because you're not constantly worried about the next moment. If you set a container for yourself, you're able to be present.
Ah, wow. Yes, that's it. You nailed it. You set a container and within this time I could just be without any interruptions, without any, I mean, sometimes stuff happens, right? But that's it. That's what I needed to hear. Thank you.
Yeah, it's like the dance of like the divine masculine and the divine feminine, and like having that container for that creativity to flow around with. Kind of like what you and your husband do like twice a year with those vacations, of setting that time and those boundaries and just allowing whatever to happen within that.
Yeah, we started doing one of them with my husband's best friend and his wife. And I think it's been 3 years we've done it now. And every year they're like, okay, well, what are we gonna do this time? And every time we're like, dude, we're on the no plan. It's starting to get easier. Like we just sat around the fire like last time, and we went to the beach and we just talked and hung out and looked at stars and, made space for nature.
Yeah, you were just able to be, right? Be.
Yes. So cool. Thank you so much for giving me language to my thoughts and literally you're reading my mind, or maybe I'm just using you to tell me what I needed to hear myself from a different person.
A reflection of what's going on.
Yes.
So if people would like to work with you in any capacity, where could we guide them to discover?
Yes. Yes, yes, thank you. Drsharnael.com. I have my podcast there every Thursday at noon. We have several online courses just to help tap into that intuition and connecting with yourself, learning more about yourself. We have liver cleanses, we have muscle testing certifications. Um, I do have my my biofeedback and my soul audits is on there as well. If you want to work with me in a remote avenue. And then I do have a practice here in Louisiana. If you guys are anywhere near Louisiana, it's a small practice, and we have a few people here that we all work together and do our best to have fun with a lot of biohacking stuff like red light therapy and hyperbaric chamber and infrared sauna and PEMF and ozone therapy and all of that kind of stuff too. So I'm a big fan of anything that can help the body be in its best top ship shape shop, whatever.
Oh, that works too.
Yes.
Yeah,
But
I can geek out about those kind of things sometimes. So thanks. I'll put all of those links into the show notes so people can click on that really easily and find you. And let's see, is there anything on the top of your mind or your heart that you feel like you would like to share that we haven't got to yet?
yeah, no, I just appreciate people like you, honestly, that are doing what you're doing too, because with, the frequencies that are going on the planet right now, I mean, there's just so much opportunity to engage and distractions and things that are kind of low vibe and or just feel hopeless and dumb everything down and, suicide's up and alcoholism's up and, substance abuse is up and division is up and you know you are bringing light and love and opportunity for education and encouragement and inspiration through your channel. And even if like 100 people saw it or 15 people saw it, you just never know. Like even you talking to me today like really nourished me personally, so thank you very much.
Yeah, well, thank you for sharing your time and your wisdom. I guess it was like sort of like a divine timing with your Wi-Fi situation.
Yes, perfect, thank you.
So I have one last question that I ask that to wrap it up, and that is, if your inner voice had a billboard, what would it say to the world?
Oh wow, you're not truly living unless you're living true.
Hmm, I love that. Excellent. Thank you so much.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining me this week. If you're listening and you like what you hear, please consider subscribing and rating this podcast, as it really helps get this podcast out to other people who might be interested in hearing it but don't know about it yet. And also, if you'd like to contact me or reach me, you can reach me at unconditioningpodcast@gmail.com or unconditioningpodcast on Instagram. Thank you so much. And until next time, stay tuned in to you.